All right, so I saw 28 Years Later, the Alex Garland written movie directed by Danny Boyle. They teamed up again to make another 28 years later, 28 weeks later, 28 days later, another 28 movie. The first one they collaborated on was, the very first movie, 28 Days Later, which was a huge indie film. Big change for the zombie culture. Big change for zombie movies. It was the first movie where zombies were like running fast in it, and it made zombies scary again, and it was a great film. One of the most successful indie films of all time. And then you had the sequel, 28 Weeks Later, which I personally like a lot. I love that movie a lot. A lot of people tend to not like it because it was the studios taking like an indie darling film and making a big studio production out of it. But I didn't really mind. I felt like the movie still had good scares, good heart, and it was in the same vein as the other. So, I really like 28 Weeks Later and 28 Days Later. I feel like they're really good films. So I was hyped to all hell going into 28 Years Later, especially knowing that Danny Boyle was coming back to direct and Alex Garland was coming back to write it. And, it just really felt like this was going to be a return to form for the series. It was going to revitalize zombies again. And it's probably the biggest disappointment I've had all year as far as films go. 28 Years Later is not that good. The first half of the movie is excellent, I would say. They started really well. Danny Boyle is doing all his camera tricks and shaky cam and crazy angles. He's doing everything he can to capture that same visual language he used in the first film. But then in the second half of the film, he kind of goes away from that, and it kind of becomes like a standard film. And then you kind of see what the film's really about in the second half, and it gets less scary. The first half of the film, there were some genuine scares, and you're like, wow, this movie's going to be something else. And then you start, seeing what the movie's really about, and then you're like, oh, this is where we're going. And then all the scares become less scary for some reason, which is a big problem for a zombie film. Now, from the trailers, you would think this movie's about, a father and son surviving, the elements, going to the mainland from their village, trying to survive a zombie horde. And maybe they run into some savage village that's, using human bones and making all kinds of like statues and structures out of human bones. You would think that's the story from the trailers they showed of this movie. You would think that's the direction we're going in. But no. You know what I'm saying? When you get to the human bone structures that you see in those trailers, it's really like the lightest point of the movie. It's like the chillest point of the movie. And it's not scary at all. And that was a big disappointment. And there are some like heartfelt, touching moments in that second half of the movie. But when you realize it's just about the kid trying to save his mom, trying to get her to a doctor, and then you find out she has cancer, it's sad, it's touching and all. I teared up a little bit, but then you're like, wait a minute, this is like a zombie film. What are we doing right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the point of all this? We need to accept death as a culture or something like that. I mean, that's what the doctor's getting at, the whole time they're with him. And I'm like, okay, is that it? Is that what this whole movie's about? Is that what we spent 2 hours trying to say? Like, that's your whole message here? That was very disappointing for me. I was expecting way more out of this film. I was not expecting some cancer story and a bunch of zombie dicks on screen, because the amount of zombie cock on this movie is atrocious. I mean, the big floppy wieners all over the screen. I don't know what Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are trying to say with the amount of giant cocks on screen flopping around. I mean, this movie has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. 90%. So I guess it just proves that all you need is a giant floppy dick, giant floppy wieners all over the screen, and you're going to get some high scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Because that's what's adult. That's what's edgy. Giant zombie penises. But, going to the zombies, I like that they added different zombies. The alpha, giant fucking zombie that controls the other zombie. That's a good idea. Do I need to see a 16-inch penis with that? I don't think so. I don't think that's really a necessity. I don't think that's, important to a story. But I guess it was important to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland that we see, 20-inch giant cocks. Like, and you're just hyper focused on these fucking cocks with the camera. They're literally like center screen like the whole time. It's the oddest thing in the world. You get giant fat crawly zombies that eat worms on the ground. I thought that was a cool addition. Those were really creepy. I was hoping they were going to use them more in the movie, but the 2 scenes they use them in, that was really effective, really creepy. Good body horror. And of course, we have a pregnant zombie again. Another movie with another pregnant zombie. And the zombie gives birth to a baby and stops being a zombie. The zombie mother just stops being a zombie because she's having a baby. And she grabs hands with the human to give birth to a baby. And then the baby comes out and it's perfectly fine. And then the zombie mom goes back to being a zombie real quick. You're kind of like breaking the rules of the universe you've made. But, whatever. I thought the rage virus was just that. Something that gives them like uncontrollable rage. And they just go to town on anybody, right? That they see. Unless they're pregnant, of course. Then they won't go to town on anybody. It's just odd rules that they're making up as they go in this movie, right? Because we already had 2 movies that already established the rules of the world. And if you want to add a couple new zombies because it's been 28 years later and maybe the virus has mutated into something else, okay, that makes a little sense. But like, they're giving birth now to regular human babies? Like, it's just like jump the shark moment, right? But all this is not really too egregious. I was actually with the film for about 90% of it up until we get to the very end of the film. And it really goes to show how important ending a film is because the last 5 minutes of your film can ruin the whole film. And I really feel like it did ruin the film in the last 5 minutes. We see the kid leave the village. He's going out on his own. He's walking the road. He's going to live in the zombie land, really. Survive on his own at 12 years old. You know what I'm saying? He thinks he can handle this by himself. So he's on his own. They read the letter he leaves to his father. And that right there probably would have been a good ending. You probably could have just shown the kid walking on the road and, credits. But no, they want to continue. He gets chased by some zombies and he runs into a group of British hooligans wearing bright and colorful tracksuits. And it's like a scene straight out of Layer Cake or something like that. Like Danny Boyle is pulling a completely different tonal shift right at the last 5 minutes. Because the whole movie up to that point is pretty played seriously. There's, a couple funny moments. But the whole movie is really played very seriously. Like most 28, years later, 28 weeks later, 28 days later movies, It's played pretty straight. The zombie stuff's supposed to be horrific. It's supposed to be scary. And then it just turns into a fucking, like, layer cake romp with a bunch of British hooligans and totally shifts the tone. We got hooligans in tracksuits doing flips, jumping around, killing zombies like we're in Zombieland. Like the Mark Zuckerberg movie. Like we're in that one. And we're no longer in the 28 years later movie. And then it gets tied together. Oh, this hooligan leader is the kid from the very first opening of the movie. And I'm like, all right, that's a way to tie it together. Completely unneeded, but I guess it's okay to tie it together. And also, it's pretty presumptuous of the filmmakers to think they're going to get a sequel to 28 years later after that ending, you know what I'm saying? And after the audience reaction to this movie, which has been very mixed. Like, I think it's got like a 60-something on Rotten Tomatoes for the audience score. It's got a B cinema score, which is pretty low for this film. I was expecting something much higher. I could see why audiences are kind of turning on it. After seeing the ending of the film, I was kind of like, fuck this film. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first half of the movie was great. I loved the build-up. I loved them setting up the world, setting up the new zombies, setting up how the village is connected to the mainland through a sandbar that gets flooded, and they can only cross during low tide. I like all this setup and all this world building. And then they kind of just drop it. And they kind of change the film halfway through. And it becomes something completely different. And then the very end of the film, it becomes something even more different. More ridiculous. Complete tonal shift from what they were doing. And then they just use the ending of the film to set up another film that probably will never get made. You know what I'm saying? The likelihood of them making another movie that connects to this is like very low, especially after the audience reaction. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. And, if they make another movie, I don't know if I want to see it. It's just going to be a silly zombie film in the same vein as Zombieland and Layered Cake smashed together, and that'll be your next Danny Boyle 28, years later, part 2. We're completely abandoning the serious tone of these movies. You know what I'm saying? The more I think about the ending, the more I get frustrated with it. And, it completely wrecked the film. Because while I could handle some of the disappointing elements of the second half of the film, I really can't handle the ending that completely gives like a fuck you to everybody that's been watching the film. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, oh, were you getting invested in this serious world? Well, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? This is not a serious world. This is some romp comedy now. But that's just my take on it. 28 years later was probably the biggest disappointment of the year for me so far. We still got a lot of year to go. Still could be many more disappointments, but right now, it's sitting at the top of the list as most disappointing of the year. I would gladly watch 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later over this film. Watch those films, and then I'll watch the first hour of 28 Years Later and, never watch it again. Never watch the rest of it, And just the amount of zombie penis. I don't understand. What is the point of showing me so much zombie penis? I don't get it. I don't understand. Who was sitting in the writer's room? And then we're going to have a big floppy zombie penis walking through the scene. No one said anything? When they were shooting this? I think we have too much zombie penis right now. Can we just, cut it down to maybe one zombie penis? No. Everybody's got to have a zombie penis in this movie. So funny. But anyway, that's it for now. Comment below. Let me know what you thought of 28 Years Later. Did it disappoint you like me? I was really hoping for something a lot better. And the first half of the movie really makes you think, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to get better and better. And then it just completely falls off a cliff. And then the ending is an exclamation point on a train wreck. You know what I'm saying? It's the train's already wrecked and then it explodes at the end. So any possible survivors just got evaporated by the explosion. That's what the ending of this movie was, And that's it for now. Comment below. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.